This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. 5 years ago, deep in a bear market, a group of traditional finance experts founded BitGet, and they've been building ever since. Now, with 20 million users worldwide, BitGet is committed to helping users trade smarter by providing a secure one-stop crypto investment solution with copy trading, future trading, and spot trading. Your security is their priority, and BitGet has one of the largest protection funds in the industry, with US $300 million to cover potential trader losses from unforeseen events that are not due to misconduct from the user or platform. BitGet wants to inspire everyone to embrace Web3, so if you're new to crypto, learn more at the BitGet Academy with free blockchain courses, crypto guides, cryptocurrency trading strategies, and more. Or for the experienced investor, trade smarter with daily access to institutional-grade crypto market intelligence and trends analysis with BitGet Research. I've put links to BitGet Research and the BitGet Academy in the show notes, so get amongst it or simply go to bitget.com. Thank you to BitGet, and now it is on with the show. My guest today is Swaroop Hegde. Swaroop is the co-founder at Powerloom, which is a decentralized data layer for Web3. Very interesting. Welcome to the show, Swaroop.
Thank you so much, Andy. It's great to be here.
Great to have you here. Let's do what we do at the beginning of the show. It'd be great if you could please introduce yourself, really. Just love to hear a little bit about your personal and professional backstory, what you've been doing in the lead up to co-founding Powerloom.
Absolutely. My name is Swaroop Hegde. I'm currently the co-founder of Powerloom. I have been in technology for a little over 2 decades, mostly been an entrepreneur all my life. I think I got that bug pretty early on. Got into crypto or Web3 about, I would say, 2017. So it's a little over 7 years. Prior to that, I built companies in e-commerce, social media, and my last Web2 company, at least I'd like to say, was in esports. So we were actually sort of a data science company for that. So we sold that company in 2015, and then obviously after some time I realized I wanted to work on my new venture. Got into blockchain, very interestingly, discussing some other projects during 2017. There was a whole ICO boom happening, and I was actually attracted to Ethereum for what it was capable for. So initially, as I was sort of building things on top of it, so I still like to write code. So at that time, I used to probably write more code during the day. And so I realized it was very difficult as a developer, and things have changed so much since then. But that was sort of what we started. So my current co-founder, who was also my co-founder for the first project, is called Block Visual. We started out as a developer tool, and then during 2020, I would say mid of 2020, we sort of pivoted our business to help out a small network called Matic at that time. Now they're obviously very well known as Polygon. So we were running infrastructure for that project, and then we were pretty much the biggest RPC explorer for a very long time. And I think we were the only ones for like 6 months. And Powerloom sort of was born out of a side idea, and it's been 3 years, I think, since I've been working on Powerloom.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. We better start to learn a little bit more about what Powerloom is. Because it's an interesting one. Like, I could say something like the Powerloom Protocol is a decentralized data protocol designed to meet the data requirements of smart contract-based applications such as DeFi games and so on. And then it gets interesting. So you say, I think this is from your website, it incentivizes participating peers to achieve consensus on state transitions and event emission observations across multiple smart contracts. So there's a few layers to this. So, we'll talk about this in a few different ways, but maybe do you want to just begin by giving a kind of a high level overview of what Powerloom is? Like, how do you describe Powerloom when someone, you're at a barbecue and someone says, so what do you do?
Absolutely. I think, the barbecue angle would be, I would go a little less technical for sure. So I'll try that.
Yep.
So in that way, we are analogous to something like a decentralized library catalog for blockchain data. What I mean by that is there's so much data of blockchain data on different chains, right? So it's not just Ethereum, EVM. There's of course now you have Solana and so many other chains that have, and every other day I hear something new. The challenge for most folks is it's not just about fetching that information, right? Of course, raw data itself is already complex enough for people to understand. So Powerloom sort of acts as a sort of decentralized library in the sense that not only do we have these shelves of books per se, but then any change that happens, whether it's cataloging, whether it's adding, removal, but when as a reader or whoever is consuming this library still gets the latest sort of data, and they can trust that that data in that book has been verified, right? This is the most barbecue sort of explanation that I give to people. But I can also give a more technical one if that makes sense.
Yep, that does make sense. How is that different from like an Oracle network? That'd be a good way to begin as well.
Yeah, so I think when we first started out, I remember we used to also say off-chain data. We slowly moved away from it because this was the number one thing, right? Would come up like, are you an Oracle? Because Oracle is a lot about putting things back onto the chain, right? So you're sort of reading a lot of data and you're putting small bits into it. Our focus is purely on the read side. So it's all about consuming data, right? So for example, when you have, I'll take a, I know we're going to discuss about DeFi and other projects, but like, let's say if there's any piece of information you want from the most popular app, like Uniswap or something, right? So if you have data about a certain trade, that's usually something that people use, things like RPCs, and you obviously have a lot of indexer systems these days, right? Both centralized and decentralized. So Powerloom is sort of, that's where it excels. So any sort of data that needs to be then transformed. So if you have to sort of compute, analyze, and you still want that final result, and what we call as a snapshot. So that snapshot has been verified through a consensus, and that's what the Powerloom network is for. And that's where our biggest difference is, because that end result is also something that you can trust. Because usually what happens is when you're querying, so there's some sort of a middleman, usually in most of these protocols or centralized systems. Obviously for a centralized API, that's always a middleman, right? So I think that's our biggest difference, I would say.
Yeah,
so
makes
that
sense.
doesn't make us an Oracle.
Yeah, and really, so at a high level, this is about building out a trustless data system at scale and as on-chain data primitive for the blockchain community, for the Web3 community.
Absolutely. And the more complex the use cases, the more transformations, and let's say we want to start mixing different chains together, it should still be trusted, right? So I think, and that's our thing. So the bigger the data is, we have noticed that our overhead costs are almost the same, right? Because of our approach that we have taken. I'm not saying our approach is the best or somebody else's is better, or whoever it is, right? So the approach that we have taken, because it's more efficient, it actually scales better the more data there is and the more transformations that you want to do.
Got it. All right. Well, let's talk some use cases. Let's talk about some of the use cases of on-chain data. I suppose in some of the different Web3 verticals. I guess we can cover there's DeFi, NFTs, gaming, and centralized products or applications as well. So, do you want to kind of talk through some of these different use cases across these different areas?
Yeah, absolutely. And as I like to call myself the number one person in the user of the protocol. Like from the day one, I used to always put myself in that shoes. How would I use my own protocol once it's ready, right? So, so the first thing we started out, and I think what I'll do is I'll just expand on the Uniswap use case itself, because that's the first thing we put out there, and it's something we call internally as Pooler. So this use case potentially is if for most people, when they use Uniswap, they're obviously interacting with the dApp, right? Which is, of course, they're looking at the instant price and they're making decisions. But then there is this vast amount of analysis that most people are doing, right? The traders, or whether it's even for folks who want some transparency on what's really happening with the trade. So there's a page that Uniswap shows. It's called Info. I believe it's info.uniswap.org for people listening in. So that page is currently, of course, is a complete analysis of what's happening with the entire protocol, right? So it's a lot of data crunching that happens. And so Powerloom has sort of utilized as our first sort of showcase of what the protocol can do for you. So what we do is we are able to generate these snapshots without having to query some sort of a database, right? So it's not only is a decentralized index that most people end up building for such things, but on top of that, you still have to like, okay, give me the first top 10 tokens, or what's going on with them, how are they sort of affecting price, or if what are people doing in the last 3 hours with a certain one, or what is the position of a certain LP. So this is where Powerloom sort of brings you that snapshot fully ready before you even sort of need it. So of course, it's depending on demand and supply, right? So there's this concept of what we call them one is snapshotted. These are our protocol members who are sort of constantly crunching this data in a decentralized way. They are the ones who are reaching consensus on a network. And then there are people who could be anyone. It could be a developer. It could be just a power user who's curating this data. They're like, okay, this is the kind of data that people probably need, and it's in demand. And then they curate the logic for it. So that result, the end result, which is essentially the info.uniswap.org, which we now have our own running for quite a while now. We obviously even have a testnet running with it just to showcase that there are more peers, not just us running that. And so, yeah, that's essentially what Powerloom now is showcasing as like one of our big usages. And of course, this extends to more DeFi protocols like Aave and many others.
Yeah, got it. Thank you. And yeah, I love the yeah. So you've kind of explained that there's the snapshotters, validators. Of course, any chain is going to have validators for validating blocks. Curators, as you've mentioned, who yeah, are responsible for building the new use cases, keeping current data market implementations up to date. And of course, then there's signalers and of course, consumers who are the end users of the data, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and with curators, so of course, like I'll give you an example. I think by the time the podcast comes out, because I think the announcement is supposed to go out tomorrow probably, is we have built this sort of, we started with Uniswap V2 purely for a reason, even though V3 had been out for a while at that time. Because a lot of these clones of V2, right? It started with Sushi, obviously, they were the first ones. And then you have QuickSwap and so many others, right? Who have, I think Vitalik or somebody has said on a podcast that it's the most deployed smart contract on EVM ecosystems, at least, because people have literally just cloned that and built their own versions of it, right? So the way we built it is like, okay, it can work with anyone who has used the same sort of contract. That same use case, the build will work. But with V3, things changed drastically, right? Which is why you don't see so many V3 clones. And I think they're already on to the V4 right now. They're talking about like V4 is going to come out. It's probably going to come out this year. I know some of the stuff is already out there. So that V2 to V3 is what we talked about, how a curator would probably update it. Or a whole new curator is like, hey, you know what? I think I've designed V3s too hard, so I've just designed something from scratch. So that would be another sort of use case. But to the community, it would not matter, right? So when you're sort of consuming, I'm just requesting them like a data market. I need this data coming from here, so that would be the way of from the consumption perspective.
Sure. And look, you're exactly right. There are a number of other players in this kind of decentralized data space as well. Everyone doing their part to build out these different on-chain data primitives. But yeah, explain then what you guys have coming down. I suppose the product pipeline. What you're doing to kind of try and maintain that edge as one of the leading or emerging infrastructure players in Web3.
Absolutely. I think we obviously have a different approach, right? Because like I said, it's very snapshot driven. So it's definitely not the same as, you cannot take, let's say, as much as I don't like to name out competitors, but let's say if I were to compare with Graph being the biggest one, right? I'm a mentor at a lot of ETH Global hackathons. So, I mentor a lot of these new hackers, existing hackers. So everyone's using that, right? So, but the difference there is that a lot of them have to end up either using, they're probably not able to build a subgraph themselves, but they're sort of querying it constantly. So that query aspect is what is centralized, because you still have to talk to a person who has the decentralized index, right? And you have to trust that they are returning the data back to you correctly, because that's the big difference that we have, because with us, the snapshot is already built. So that final snapshot, which of course we currently use things like IPFS to showcase the CID. So let's say Andy, Swaroop, and of course we have a note taker. So all three of us if we all reach that, then the consensus marks it as done. And even if there's a majority, that's cool. And one person being wrong doesn't affect it, right? So you know when you're getting that data, that's already been verified. And even if one of the nodes go down, this is the beauty of it, the data will live, right? Because all these things cryptographically, thankfully, don't change. And we have a proof of it on a network that we build with. So one thing that we focused a lot on from the very beginning was that can we at least commoditize this whole aspect of snapshotting itself? Because what I observed, and I've been running nodes for pretty much every chain for a long time. I still, I even run ETH proof of stake node from, before it when the merge happened. And I realized that it can be quite challenging, right? And then once you get into, let's say, the other competitors in our space, it's almost like they require you to stake hundreds and thousands of dollars to even be an indexer on the network, which I understand from a perspective of, oh, it's hard, so we want to keep it to small quality of players. So we sort of took a very decentralized approach in that sense as well. So we started with this testnet. We obviously work with CoinList on this to make it compliant because we want to reward people. So we don't, just an FYI, at least as of this recording, we don't have a token yet. So we had to figure out a way to incentivize people, right? We're a new provider. How do we do that? So we worked with CoinList to do that. And then we invited about 100 people to do it. So that was already more than most number of networks that sort of support this. And now goal is actually to take that 100 and turn it into maybe not 10,000 individuals, but like 10,000 slots. Like that's our goal. And that's something that we're working towards. But the goal is like everything should be in a way that if I'm a snapshotter on this network, I should be able to just connect with any sort of a computer, right? Like even right now, it's a one-click GitHub. We call it a GitHub code space deployment because you can just go on our repository, which has been open source since last March. And I did this demo in ETH Waterloo last year, that you can just one-click deploy the node and it connects to the network. You have very minimal sort of usage. And the idea is you can contribute to the network and be rewarded for it. And this way there's, we are democratizing this whole process as well, right? It's not just about, these only key 50 players who get to control the snapshotting. I think that's been our biggest focus.
So, and are you talking about the Powerloom node mint? Is that what you mean?
Oh yeah, that's something, depends on when that goes live. So that's actually not live yet. So if this podcast goes live in 2 weeks, I'm guessing the announcement should have been live. It's I can't reveal everything about it, but that's our next step. Sorry, Andy.
Well, sorry, Swaroop. I was just going to say I'm probably going to publish this podcast reasonably quickly, so it'll go out this week. So I don't want you to talk about something.
I can tease about it. Let me do
tease exactly. So I don't think we haven't given anything too much alpha away. I don't think, but tell us what you can about the Powerloom node mint. Sorry.
So everything is public up until this point. So our CoinList incentivized testnet initially started with phase 1, that was for snapshotters. We then did a phase 2 that was more for consumers. So we built like sort of a fun use case where they would do on-chain activities, and our own protocol was snapshotting and giving that results. So there's something that we are working on as well. I'm not sure if I can reveal everything, but it's coming out very, very soon. The goal is what I talked about. How do we take now these 100 snapshotters and turn them into 10,000? And that's something that has been our focus for, I would say, even through the entire holiday period that we've been working towards it. And we are hoping we can launch something very, very soon in a compliant way so that people can actually now take part in the network and help us sort of test it before we go to mainnet later this year.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you. I believe also, I know you mentioned Polygon at the beginning of the show, Matic, obviously. Yeah, you guys have there's a close relationship between Powerloom and Polygon though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, it's a lot of history between me and my co-founder and them because, when, at that time when we helped them in infrastructure, of course, we were not Powerloom at that point. Powerloom wasn't born at that time, but, it's a great transition from that, right? So we were the developer tool. We became the RPC and the infra, which is now what we are trying to decentralize with Powerloom. And, Sandeep and I know the rest of the co-founders said, so they sort of spun out into their own projects. But what I've seen is like their relentless will to like make sure that they keep innovating, like with their latest stuff. Like Powerloom uses something called a CDK. It's one of the challenges for us was how do we have a chain for our own cryptographic proofs, right? Because we have to run this consensus and then we have to store all these bits of data. And I remember personally researching a lot. And so I think we first started out with something which was called SuperNets. Obviously, we were trying to scale that. And then ZK was far away, right? This is like, I would say about maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we didn't even know that we would be using ZK in 2023, and now it's already 2024. It's pretty much the de facto standard. ZKVM has been out for a while. So we work very closely with them. And I think even their community, when we ran the phase 2 program on CoinList, I think we ended up registering like about 20,000 people who came onto our protocol, did on-chain transactions on their ZKVM. So we used that as a way to sort of, and again, this was all mainnet transactions, right? So no testnet fun stuff that you can just write a bot. So you had to like spend money to do that, but it was just that, little amount of money. Making sure that we had real transactions, so that we worked with a bunch of other Polygon ecosystem partners like QuickSwap. So they used one of our own use cases to fetch that data from Powerloom and then make sure that they were all being rewarded for those certain on-chain tasks. And yeah, we will continue working with them. There's, I think the next announcement that we are also doing, there'll be something big. We're sort of getting all that in order from a logistics perspective. So you'll hear more from us in terms of partnership with Polygon.
I like it. Thank you, Swaroop. All right, well, look, as we start to finish off this part of the podcast, just again, any hints that things that are coming down the product pipeline, tell people where they can go and what they should do if they want to learn more about Powerloom, keep up with new developments in the ecosystem and so on. What should people do? Where should they go?
Yeah, if you are, let's say, a non-tech person, I think our Discord communities are pretty active. In July, we had maybe no one on it, and now we have like 15,000 people, all through our community engagements, with all these sort of programs that we ran. So we'll be doing more testnets. That's the goal up until we haven't decided on the mainnet date yet, but it's going to happen this year. Probably the second quarter is what we're aiming for to go live. So that's probably the best place. There's obviously our website, powerloom.io. You can follow us on Twitter. We put all our updates there, and Discord is where we communicate. I believe we have a Telegram group, but I think most of the discussions end up happening on Discord. If you're a developer or people who are even interested, right, you have some sort of maybe technical expertise and you want to understand how does Powerloom work, the best place is to go to our documentation. It's docs.powerloom.io. You can find it from any of our social media sites as well. And that actually goes pretty deep into how Powerloom works, what you can do, even though right now there's no testnet running. All of our code is open source, so you can actually play around with the protocol, contribute to it as well, build new use cases. Like we did this at ETH India Hackathon as well, so we encouraged people and we gave out bounties. So we'll be continuing to do that more in the coming weeks or months. And we also have previous recordings of all our community calls and technology community calls, like tech community calls on our YouTube. So if you go to powerloom.tv, I believe that should automatically redirect you to our YouTube channel. So yeah, there's a lot of content out there. Pretty much we try to do things on open. You should be able to keep things busy.
Awesome. Thank you, Swaroop. I think what we'll do now is we'll go to a very quick break, and then we'll come back. We'll have some fun. We'll run you through the very famous Crypto Conversation hot take round. I'll be back in 1 second.
Oh, this is a full-time job. Crypto markets really are 24/7. Oh, Elon's tweeted again about Dogecoin. I don't have the time to research the technical indicators of Dogecoin. What are you doing?
I just use CopyTrader on BitGet. One click and I'm copying the trades from an experienced crypto trader. Then it just gives me all the time in the world to watch my favorite Netflix shows and do all my favorite activities.
I've been up for 24 hours, I've had 16 cups of coffee, 8 energy drinks, and that bird noise is getting on my last nerve.
I think you need to go to bed.
Yeah, I need to go to bed.
Hands off, gains up. Start copy trading on BitGet.
All right, we are back, and I'm with Swaroop Hegde. Swaroop is the co-founder at Powerloom, the decentralized data layer for Web3, which we've heard all about today. Swaroop, you may or may not know, but I like to finish each podcast with a quick round of rapid-fire crypto conversation hot takes. Are you up for it?
Let's see. It sounds very exciting.
It's exciting indeed, Swaroop. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to run some questions at you. Just want to give your honest hot take style answers, if you like. Question one for you, bit of a funny one, but Swaroop, where would you say that you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain opportunist spectrum?
Oh, definitely multi-chain spectrum. I think I started out as a very early, not a maximalist, but a Bitcoin believer. I don't own any Bitcoin anymore, so maybe that's a very hot take, but yeah.
Fair enough. Okay. What would you say then is your firmest conviction crypto opinion, Swaroop?
Sorry, the furthest.
Firmest conviction. What opinion do you have that you have the most conviction in crypto-wise?
Personally, I think it's with Ethereum and EVM. I know it's been like about 6-7 years in the space. So every year I would hear that, Ethereum people would stop building on it. That has not happened, and I think there's more things happening. So I think that's my biggest conviction.
All right, very good. Bill Gates famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. With that in mind, Swaroop, if we cast your mind 10 years forward, Web3, decentralized data, what does it start to look like in 10 years' time?
10 years? That is so long. I think I've probably first thought about Bitcoin or something 10 years ago. If I were to sort of break it down, there's a lot of things that we definitely underestimated. Like if I think about even 5 years right ago, when I first went to these ZK meetups, or maybe it was longer than that, and we thought about that it would not happen right anytime soon. So that has really proved a lot of us wrong, myself too. So 10 years, I believe, we might be looking at a completely different thing. All the things we use today, we may not be using it in the same form. I'm hoping as well. So yeah, that's about it.
Absolutely, fair enough. All right, well, I guess another way of looking at this is a famous quote from William Gibson, who said that the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. Can you think of an example of the future being here right now, but most people aren't aware of it?
Right, it's the L2, and whether it's rollups, optimistic, or even ZK for that matter. I think it's been here for a while. I remember we used to talk a lot about like, when will we have that? And I think that's kind of here. We're obviously constantly still improving it, but you'll be surprised how many people are unaware of it. I don't know if it's narrative or marketing. So at least from a current status, that's the number one thing that came to my head.
Yeah, very interesting. All right, bring it back to Ethereum. You're obviously maybe not an Ethereum maxi, but you're close enough to being all in on the Ethereum ecosystem, which has come under some criticism, just I guess for the complexity involved. With all the different layer 2 options and solutions competing with each other, and it is a little bit complex. And of course, famously big move from Solana over the last 6 months or so, I suppose. But following the big Bitcoin ETF, perhaps we get an Ethereum ETF this year. I don't know, but yeah, just a hot take style, state of Ethereum going forward for the next 12 months or so. And yeah, is Solana really a competitor? What do you think?
I think the beauty about Ethereum, and why I said Ethereum and I did not even say Polygon or somebody else who are, I'm also close to the team, is because there's no single company that runs it. Everybody else, like there's always some individual or something. I know some people might claim it's Vitalik, which I completely disagree. I think there's far more researchers in the Ethereum ecosystem. So it's probably the truly decentralized protocol, right? Apart from Bitcoin per se. And that's what I think is most exciting. I'm actually all for Solana and others giving Ethereum the competition. Personally, I used to sit right next to the Solana team in 2018 when they got started. So I believed in them back then. Tole can probably concur. Hopefully he still remembers me. But yeah, I think it's great. It's great for the ecosystem, because if you don't have competition, and I think about this a lot, right? If you're the only sole platform that everything happens, you don't innovate fast enough. So when you have competition, you get to do better. So yeah, all up for, I would say there should be more chains, not just Solana. There should be more chains giving Ethereum some competition.
Very nice. All right. Well, as we start to finish off, Swaroop, time to get weird just for a second. Let's zoom out. What do you see as the long-term future for the human race? Do you see dystopia or utopia?
I think the current near-term future, I do feel it might seem a bit dystopian with our society heading towards some very weird things. But sometimes I think about zooming out a lot, how we talk about saving the earth and all those things, but then earth and universe are like billions of years old. So this is such a small timeline. In the long run, I think humanity will figure out, just like we have survived, among other species on this planet, unless some cosmic event happens, right? That's the only exception. We will probably figure things out. But I think we might be headed towards slightly harsher times before things get better.
Yeah. All right. Makes sense. Let's finish this off. The final question is, what is your favorite science fiction book, film, or TV show?
Science fiction film. I was recently I had a dream about the Tom Cruise movie, the old one. I'm just trying to remember the name. Not the Mission Impossible ones. The one where you would control things with your hand gestures, and we're sort of coming back again, right? To
Minority Report. Yeah.
Minority Report, exactly. And in the Minority Report, you're also thinking about, thanks for reminding me of that, Andy. It's also about seeing the future, right? And there's a lot of, it kind of fascinated me a lot back then. I feel like we didn't get a lot of that tech at that age when I first saw it. I was like, oh, we're going to have all this before I turn 35, and it hasn't happened. But excited for that. It's the closest to getting close to science fiction, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. All right. Hey, this has been a lot of fun, Swaroop. Thank you so much for coming on the show and spending some time with us today. Look, just to finish off, again, just give us the very high-level snapshot vision of what Powerloom is, and for any developers interested in building, what should they do? Where should they go?
Thanks. And there was a little bit of pun unintended with the snapshot word. But yes, if you want to take part in the protocol, I wouldn't say there's never been a better time. Please check out our GitHub, our documentation, if you're a developer, and even if you're not, come join the community. There's a lot of exciting things that we've been doing for the past few months, and there's things coming very, very soon that you can take part. So yeah, follow us on Twitter, check out our website. Website is powerloom.io, and on Twitter we are Powerloom HQ.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Swaroop. All the best, and bye for now.
Thank you so much, Andy. It was great being here.
All right, there you go. That was Swaroop from Powerloom, building the decentralized data layer for Web3. Link to the website is in the show notes, but as Swaroop said, it is powerloom.io. That was good. I enjoyed that. Fascinating talking to Swaroop. And yeah, I don't know. What do you think? Is it going to be a big year for Ethereum? Can Ethereum continue to fight off the fast-growing Solana ecosystem? Of course, Solana famously low transaction fees, which just it does help for anything really, whether it's DeFi or NFTs. Certainly helps for NFTs. Interesting one. So I think that'll be one of the key narratives actually this year. Can Ethereum kind of maintain its lead and reputation as the leading smart contract platform? Or will Solana catch up? You just don't know. That's why it's interesting. All right, powerloom.io is the website. Thanks again to the Powerloom team and to Swaroop for coming on the show. That is it for today, folks. Please make sure you subscribe to the Crypto Conversation in whatever podcast app you are using. But that's it. Bye for now. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave New Coin.